Welcome to IB Business Management pre-released case study analysis run by TAE. The aim of this video is to understand the case study in enough depth so that you can write an insightful analysis to your Paper 1 examinations. Paper 1 is all about context. Not only will it test you on your subject knowledge, you will have to show how much of this knowledge you can apply specifically to multi-marketing, our case study. Without this application skill, you will not be able to earn your marks for your 6-mark, 10-mark, and 8-mark answers. And to nail this mark, this video will briefly explain the type of business multi-marketing is and carry out a SWOT analysis and a stakeholder analysis. This will help you understand the case study in depth. So to make the most of this video, have the case study printed out or on your iPad, anyhow, so that you can freely write notes all over it. And it might be worthwhile to have more than one copy of it to avoid too much notes being written on a single copy. If you have not read the case study already, please pause the video and do so now. Well done if you have already read the case study. I will now go through the main characteristics of our case study business, to help you understand what type of business they are. is a very interesting business. Their customers are not individual people. Instead, MM's customers are businesses. Provides marketing services to other businesses, and they help those businesses reach their customers through improving their corporate branding and creating market strategies for them. Marketing is all about making a product known to the target customer, making products appealing to the target customer, and making target customers react in a way you want them to, whether that's buying your products, donating to your charity, or behaving in a socially ethical manner. Whatever it is, manipulating your target customers is the purpose of marketing, and that's what helps other businesses do. These are some ways they do it. So first, they advise customers on issues relating to marketing. They could advise potential product improvement, or they could give an advice on pricing strategies, or recommend distribution channels. Another way is design and develop the marketing strategies for the business. This could be designing appropriate material for chosen media, design specification for film and radio promotions, or help them use more innovative social media, technology, and e-commerce websites, or buy an advertising space for the client on the internet, radio, and TV on their behalf. It sounds rather simple, but what this business is doing is provide marketing strategies for different businesses. And marketing strategies and advice cannot be general. It's going to be very specific to the purpose the business wants to achieve. So far, has been successful in doing that. Some characteristics that you also have to know is that currently outsources their photography used in marketing material and production of film and radio promotion. So is doing the planning of how the marketing is going to work, and they have an external business outside that actually makes those materials for them. Another big thing about in this case study is that they have opened an office in India. This shows that this business is expanding. Well, that was what the business is like. And now I'll quickly show you the key terms of this case study. I won't go through them in detail. Feel free to pause the video and highlight them yourself. These key terms will be the key terms used in your 2-mark answers. You will not be asked to write definitions of business words that have not been mentioned in the case study. So make sure you know what these key terms all mean for the sake of your assessment objective 1 2-mark questions. Now we will do a stakeholder analysis. This is where we get to know the people in the business, the people involved. So owners, managers, employees, these people are the people that sets the culture of the business. And through understanding them, we can identify the characteristics of the business as well. First, we have the three owners, Rachel, Javid, and Arjun. They have known each other since university, and together they started this multimedia business. Each of them hold a quarter of the share, 25% of the share. So let's start with Rachel. Rachel grew up in Israel. She studied graphic design in university, and now she is in charge of the design division in MM. She is also the managing director of the business. This means she has more authority over the business than Javid and Arjun. This explains why both Javid and Arjun comes to speak to Rachel before they make big decisions. And that relationship, the fact that they went to meet Rachel before a big decision, implies that her authority is respected by her co-workers, Arjun and Javid. Rachel is very cautious in her approach. She wants to minimize risks, but does favor expansion at the same time. And because she favors expansion, she does not want to reduce spendings that may result in reducing MM's ability to generate revenue. She also feels that opening an office in Bengaluru is an opportunity for reorganization, such as organizing the sales division into country of sales, and perhaps moving all of MM's operations into Bengaluru. Next, we'll look at Javid. Javid lived in Jordan, and he studied business in university. This means MM has an owner that has expertise knowledge in business. He is in charge of finance and digital operation division. And in the case study, he meets up with Rachel to discuss about the newest provisional accounts and cash flow forecasts of 2021. He thinks that MM should reduce costs by delaying planned pay rise for employees, reducing payments to owners, and reducing expenditure on marketing MM's services. Unlike Rachel, he's not too keen in moving all the functions to Bengaluru, because he thinks London has a very strong creative industry. Overall, we can see from that Javid provides a very practical insight into expansion. Then we have Arjun. He's lived in India and is very familiar with India. This country that he's familiar with is the country the new office is located. This means one of the owners have the local and cultural knowledge of the country the new office is in. However, he is in charge of sales division, which is based in London. Hence, he will not be in the Bengaluru office. He is also in charge of the marketing division, and we know that he studied media and journalism in university. Therefore, we can see that he is able to make good use of his area of expertise. Arjun is very enthusiastic about expansion, which could clash with the cautiousness of Rachel and the practicalness of Jordan. He's also Claire's manager, whom the employees complain about in this case study, and because of this, he meets with Rachel to discuss what to do with Claire. Claire is currently the manager of the public service department in MM. She is a highly successful manager from New Zealand, and her enthusiasm inspires some in her team, which resulted in 50% increase in revenue over a year. She can be autocratic at times when there are targets to be met. She has a strong interest in environmental issues and is very ambitious, which can be seen through her want to make the Indian States Less Plastic campaign bigger and better than any other, and wants to complete it as quick as possible. But not everyone's perfect, and we see a downside of her. When she finds out that employees have been complaining about her, she reacted extremely unethically by blocking pay rises and threatening workers with less interesting work. That's the kind of person Claire is. And now let's look at the employees working with Claire. These employees are very able. We can see this through the awards they have received and how satisfied their customers are. They are a very smart team. Some of them were inspired by Claire's enthusiasm, but there were complaints about unrealistic deadlines and bullying from Claire. These complaints later on became voices requesting Claire to be dismissed because Claire misused her authority and mistreated her employees after she found out about these complaints. Now let's look at all the employees in the business now. There's 50 of them. Some of these employees have moved to India, to the Bengaluru office, and the extra workers needed in the Bengaluru office were recruited locally. To attract highly qualified workers in Bengaluru, which was evidently difficult, started offering high salary and generous benefits to their employees. A lot of the creative employees are unlikely to relocate to India, as they may prefer staying in London, the city of creative arts. Lastly, let's look at the customers. customers used to be based only in the UK. But now provides marketing help for businesses in UK, Europe, and even Asia now. It creates marketing strategies for national businesses, multinational businesses, NGOs, charities, and governmental departments as well. And each of these customers are very happy with the service they've received. Probably why there is a strong word-of-mouth promotion. And the Asian market now accounts for 30% of customers, and that's expected to grow even further, up to 60% within a few years. Okay, so these were the peoples involved in this business, and from that, you can already understand a lot about the business atmosphere and tension. So well done for making it this far. Now we will analyze the situation of the business as a whole through a SWOT analysis. And this is the more important part of the video. So prepare to be focused. If you are feeling tired from the content we've covered, I would advise you to take a rest before you resume. Now we are going to start the SWOT analysis. I want you to take out your case study, have a highlighter in your hand, and be prepared to highlight away and write notes all over it. Okay, so SWOT analysis is a very good tool to see a snapshot of how the business is doing at the current moment. For us, trying to find out the situation our business is in, there is no better tool than this to use, as the SWOT analysis considers both internal and external situations of the business. Let's first start with strengths. So if we see in the first line, we can see that Rachel, Javid, and Arvan all met at university in London, United Kingdom in 2010. So from this, we can see that a solid relationship would have been built between those three, since they were university students. And the next thing we see is that Rachel studied graphic design, Javid studied business, and Arvan studied media and journalism in line 3-4. So together, they do hold a variety of skills that are required to carry out the essential functions within the business. And yeah. Then if we scroll down all the way to line 19, we see that there is easy access to many large national and international businesses, particularly in European markets, because their business is located in London. Then in line 25, we see that they also have customers throughout the United Kingdom. So if we look at these two lines together, line 19 and 25, we can see that currently has a very wide reach of customers, ranging from the local ones within the United Kingdom, easy access to the European ones, and not just one type of businesses, but both national and international businesses. So we can see that MM's market is currently not restricted to a single market. And we also know that they are going to develop this strength even further by targeting the Asian market, because we know that they are planning to expand by opening up an office in India. Another strength has is their enthusiasm and youthfulness, their innovative use of social media and technology. This is a very great strength they have, especially in our current generation where technology and innovation is improving rapidly. And the fact that the owners, are youthful and enthusiastic to keep up with that change is a great strength, especially in terms of marketing, because marketing requires advertisements and promotions to continuously match the trend of the current time. And this is particularly important for them because they are a business that designs marketing strategies and give advices on marketing within the business. And the fact that they have innovative use of social media and have the most updated information about technology allows them to give advice that is most updated in terms of what the customers are excited about, what the customers are expecting in the advertisements, which then can lead to customer satisfaction, which we see in line 29. There was rapid response from customers and strong word-of-mouth promotion from the customers who benefited from marketing advice from Another strength we see in line 30 is that they are a private limited company. And bear in mind that this is a business that does marketing strategies, creates promotional campaigns, videos on behalf of other businesses. They do that for other businesses, which means there would be massive amounts of cost involved. And needing to be held responsible for all that cost if a promotion or if a marketing strategy doesn't work out will put those individual assets of Rachel, Javid, and Arvan in a lot of danger. So the fact that they have limited liability will let them be more adventurous, carry out projects that require high investment because they know that the failure of those projects will not lead to individual bankruptcy. Then on the next page, we have the organizational chart. And we can see that Rachel is in charge of the design division. And remember that Rachel majored in design during her university. So it shows how the organizational chart is focusing on the owner's main area of expertise and knowledge. If we come down a little further, down to line 38, it says also has national and multinational businesses as customers. Unusually, it also has charities, non-governmental organizations, and government departments as customers. This means they have a variety of markets in which they are targeting. And if you have more than one market, it means you have more than one source of revenue. You have more than one market that you are earning profit from. Which means if one market fails, we have the other market to rely on for profit to keep our business running. Then if we come down to line 55, we can see that has strong ethical objectives. So they have a clear purpose and sense of direction. And because this objective is ethical, it's likely that is going to have a positive corporate image. If we continue on reading, it says from line 56. will not accept businesses from organizations that do not have robust equal opportunities policies or those that do not actively work to reduce their carbon footprint. It will also not work with businesses that subcontract to other businesses that exploit employees. This will then shape the image of itself as well. It's likely that they are going to have a very positive corporate image themselves, and this could be their unique selling point, because if is then known for being the ethical business that cares about how much pollution is done to our society, that cares about how much equality there is within the business, then it becomes more likely that customers trust businesses that have marketing strategies made by and from that, to gain that image, businesses might want to have their marketing helped or supported by rather than any other business. This is because if they do get support from it directly means that this business is ethical. Okay? The image the customers, the public has about is that they have ethical objectives. And therefore, if decides to work with you, it means your business, is also ethical. And in order to get that verification and show to the public that I'm also an ethical business, businesses might be willing to pay higher amounts to have marketing done with so that they may benefit from MM's positive corporate image. Then in line 61, we see that MM's owners try to reflect their cultural diversity in everything the business does, such as having multicultural content in the marketing strategies it creates. And this approach is liked by many of MM's customers. This is the key point. What they are doing, the multicultural aspect of it, is meeting the wants of their customers. And it's probably doing so because our world is becoming more and more globalized. We are becoming more and more mindful about different cultures. That's seen as ethical. That's the trend these days. And has nailed it. They have understood that people from many different cultures are now living together. People are starting to know about different cultures and are noticing that it's ethical to be mindful of different cultures. Businesses that carry out marketing want to be a part of that as well. They want to show that we are a business that is also mindful of the different cultures of this world. And that's exactly what is doing. is trying to make their marketing strategies more and more multicultural, which is not only in line with the current global trend, but is also meeting the wants of their customer, which we will identify as a big strength. If we continue on reading all the way down to line 70, the case study starts to talk about their office in India. And in line 70, it says, there are customer care teams serving Asia. It implies that they have Asian customers as well. This is adding on to the strength we talked about above when we said there's lots of target market for They have a wide range of customers. And line 70 is evidence that they also have Asian customers. And the office that works with these Asian customers has been very successful so far. It's seen in line 81. Then in line 84, we see that these workers are paid high salaries with generous benefits, partially because they wanted London employees to move into India, and they had to offer something attractive to make workers relocate. This means even if the employees do move into India from London, they will be happy about it. They are less likely to complain, being like, oh, why did we have to leave London? Why am I working in India? They would be happy to be in India because they had benefits that followed as a result. Also, if they bring the workers that they have already been working with, there is that strong sense of bond between the owners and staff. And because the workers have followed them all the way to India, it shows that these workers have loyalty towards the business. If they don't already, this will be an opportunity to help build loyalty because these workers have moved from London all the way to India just for the sake of this business. Previously, we talked about how the owners are youthful and enthusiastic. Well, there's another person in this case study that's just as enthusiastic, and it's Claire. We see in line 88 that her drive and enthusiasm inspired some in her team, which has resulted in a 50% increase in revenue by the department over the last 12 months. So there is that inspiring leadership within the business, which is absolutely a great strength. Especially because this type of leadership does more than just make the workers happy. It is producing a result of 50% increase in revenue. Not just that, if we continue reading, customer satisfaction is also very high. And some of the marketing strategies designed by Claire's team have won awards. So this inspiring leadership has driven the team to think of the best and great marketing strategies and win awards because of it. This is another strength because these awards will help enhance the reputation of MM. Also, it doesn't just show that they have a wonderful leader that is inspiring and motivating, but it also shows that they have a very skilled group of team, a team that is very able to think of the best marketing strategies good enough to win awards. So that's another strength on top of inspiring leadership. And the last strength we have is in line 107, where there have been new contracts. This means the number of customers have been increasing and is still continuing to increase. This shows that MM currently has good potential for growth because their number of customers are continuously increasing and that their strategies, their product is currently selling very well to our target market. To wrap up the strength analysis of MM, they currently have a very solid position within the market. Their customers are very happy with the marketing strategies that they are advised. Although they have a very wide variety of customers, all of them seem to be satisfied with the marketing strategy they've received. And this is because they have a very able team, a team that is smart enough, is skilled enough to win awards for their marketing strategy, as well as a leader that is inspiring. Their market is continuously expanding. It went from just within the UK to UK and European markets, now not just profit-making businesses, but non-profit businesses as well, and all the way to Asia. And at the end, we saw that the number of contracts have been increasing, the number of new contracts. So overall, MM currently has a great variety of customers, and the number of customers are continuously increasing, implying that they have a very high potential for growth. Despite all these wonderful strengths MM has, they do have some weaknesses that they can work on, mostly on the HR section and some finance problems, which we will start analyzing in a short while. Now for the weaknesses. Remember that weaknesses are parts the business can work on because it's within the business. They could potentially change it or improve on it after having identified it, unlike threats that are external and we don't have control over it. Okay, so if we come down to the second page, at the very beginning, in line 35, we see that Rachel is fairly cautious in her approach. And from the organizational chart, we also see that she has the highest position within the business. This means her cautiousness may potentially limit the business growth. And we also see in line 36, Arvan is much more enthusiastic about expansion. This shows that there could be potential clashes between the owners in terms of approaches towards expansion, where Rachel is more cautious and Arvan is more enthusiastic. This could potentially lead to conflicts between owners in terms of expansion or major decision making. Then in line 40, we see that the company now employs 50 people. This shows that the business is a rather small business, and a key weakness to any small business would be that it would be harder to find sources of finance. Banks would be less willing to lend money to businesses that aren't as big. If there are less workers, there is a limit to how much work they could get done, which means expansion can become more difficult because they find it harder to find sources of finance to fund the expansion. And second, they might not have enough workers to carry out all the work for the expansion, because expansion usually implies extra work, more products being produced, more customers. And only having 50 people within the business may limit the amount of work that the business can overall get done. Then come down to line 51, and we find that outsources some of their functions. That's completely fine. It allows to focus on the core parts of the business, but one thing that they outsource is human resource management. Allowing an external business to make the decision of which employees are going to work in our business can be very, very dangerous, because this might lead to accepting applicants that don't suit the culture, or accepting applicants that don't have the right personality traits to work well with the three owners, and therefore recruiting the people you want in your business would be best if it's done by the owners who run them. That way, the problem of Claire hiring a person that went against the ethical objectives of the business could have been avoided if the applicant was thoroughly reviewed by the owners. Another thing they outsource is the photography used in marketing materials and the production of film and radio promotions. So in terms of creating promotional materials, only does the planning, and the making is done by an external provider. This is one of the key functions of producing marketing materials on behalf of the businesses. But the fact that this key function is not inside the business, it's outside the business, done by an external provider, means that there has to be continuous communication between the two businesses. So the external provider will send the made product, the final product, and then will review it and talk about what to edit and send that back. And there's going to be stuff coming back and forth across two different businesses. Could potentially slow down the production process in the long term. Especially now that is growing, the number of customers are increasing. So the number of videos or promotional material that they have to make is also increasing. And having an external provider do that for them, not having it done within the business, and therefore needing to communicate back and forth all the time, is gonna reduce efficiency by a lot, and it may not be a big problem in the current point of time, but may potentially become one in the future. The next part of the case study talks about how decided to open up an office in India. This is another key weakness to because now they are located in two places, London and India. These two countries, these two areas, are very far away from each other, also have different time zones. This means communication can become more difficult between the two offices, which then overall may reduce efficiency and productivity. Another thing, they set up an office in India, but the owner that grew up in India is in the London office. We see this in line 73. Currently, the sales division headed by Arjun is still based in London. This means they will not be able to make the best use of the local knowledge that Arjun has from growing up in India, and won't be able to make much use of the cultural knowledge Arjun has as well in terms of dealing with their employees or dealing with their customers. Then being unable to understand the culture of employees, their culture of customers within the office in India, may lead to customer dissatisfaction or miscommunication of intentions, causing a reduction in productivity and efficiency. It could also potentially lead to them hiring another local person in India to help them with the local knowledge and culture, which would add on extra costs that could have been avoided if Arjun was at India instead of London. Then if we come down under the HRM problem, we find that Claire is being very mean to her employees. Line 96 says, staff in our department complained about unrealistic deadlines and bullying from Claire. Claire found out about their complaints and she was rude to them, blocked their pay rises, and threatened them with less interesting work. These employees now have asked Claire to be dismissed for harassment. So, the big weakness of is that they have a manager that is disliked by their employees. Just some while ago, we talked about how her drive and enthusiasm has inspired some of her employees, but she had downsides as well. We see in line 92 that she is prepared to be autocratic when necessary, and she is very ambitious. This may have caused her to give unrealistic deadlines to her staff that has caused complaints. But the way she dealt with these complaints were very problematic as well. This can potentially cause demotivation among workers and cause them to be less productive. Also, her unethical practices may harm their business image of having ethical objectives. It may make the business seem like a hypocrite because they are presenting to be following ethical objectives, but the manager within that business is acting extremely unethically by blocking pay rises of their workers. And because of that, employees are demanding Claire to be dismissed. This means they are extremely unhappy. It shows the level of dissatisfaction of the employees, asking their manager to be fired. If nothing was done to solve this dissatisfaction among the employees, it could potentially lead to industrial action, such as strike. This then will severely damage MM's public image because it will show to the public that the employees are very dissatisfied with how they were treated, and it will cause a reduction in productivity, which is extra detrimental for at the current moment because they are planning on expansion and they are continuously growing. So if they are unable to meet customers' needs and their wants at a growing stage, it's unlikely that the customers are going to stay loyal and continue receiving marketing strategies from them. So unhappy employees and an unethical manager is also a big weakness of at the current moment. Then in the next section, under the finance problem, we know that the opening of an Indian branch of the company would reduce profits for a year. This is basically saying by opening up a branch, by opening up an office in India, profits will be reduced for a year. They won't be making much profit for a whole year. But on top of that, we see in lines 107, there are signs of increasing costs. So profit will be greatly reduced, but the costs will increase. This may potentially cause liquidity problem because there won't be enough assets available, as those assets are being used to open up a branch in India. To avoid such problems, Javid has given 3 suggestions. The last one, the last bullet point of the 3, says reduction in expenditure on marketing and services. This is then contradicted with what Rachel thinks should be done. The line after says, Rachel does not want to reduce spending in areas that may result in reducing ability to generate revenue. So again, there's that opinion clash between Javid and Rachel. Remember how there was an opinion clash between Rachel and Arvan regarding expansion. There's another one again regarding cutting costs between Javid and Rachel. This is an issue in any business, owners having different views or suggestions about what is to be done. is rather lucky because the 3 owners know each other very well and have a solid relationship built. And now we will move on to opportunities. Opportunities are external factors that the business can potentially use to their advantage. Currently has a good opportunity for growth. You can see this in line 68, where it says, one of the fastest growing countries in recent years, and one that Arvan is familiar with, India, provides many opportunities for growth. Currently has offices in 2 countries, London and India. And here it says in India, there is a high potential for growth. can use this opportunity to the best of their advantage because they have an owner that already knows about the Indian culture, Arvan, and is already familiar with how things work within that country. The fact that India has a high potential for growth is already an opportunity, but can make even more use of this. They could take even more advantage of this because they have an owner that has that local knowledge of India. Then let's now come down to the ethical problem. In line 115, it says, Claire has been approached by a government in a nearby country, Country X, to design a marketing in order to improve the image of the country. So here we see an opportunity to explore a new market, a different market to the ones they already have. And then we see in line 118, it says the contract would be very profitable to and the country has offered a good price for the work. So not only is this an opportunity to explore a new market, but it's also a market with high profitability. For this means that they are not only relying on one market for profit, this will allow them to rely on several markets, many different markets for profit. So if one market fails, some other markets could sustain the profitability of So this is also an opportunity to make more likely to survive by increasing their profit lines in which profit flows in from. Then if we come down to the location problem, in line 125, we see that the Bengaluru office is responsible for customers in Asia. In 2021, this region will account for 30% of business, but it's expected to account for 60% in 2025. So here we see a prediction of increase in the Asian market, and the Bengaluru office is going to be responsible for all these customers. Just like our point before, the fact that the Asian market is expected to grow is already an opportunity. And is at a good position to take this to their advantage because they already have an office set up in Bengaluru. And the location is not just great because it's near to the Asian market, but it's also, if you see in line 130, it's a rapidly growing city of over 8 million people. It also has a high concentration of high-tech businesses in line 134. And in 135, we see that Bengaluru is also home to its own film industry, which produces about 80 films each year. The rapid growth of Bengaluru means extensive construction on buildings, and suitable premises could be found at lower rents than in the UK. So overall, Bengaluru as a location is providing closer distance to the new growing market, the Asian market, and access to high technology facilities. Not just that, the concentration of high-tech businesses in line 134, these businesses are potential targets of It's providing them the opportunity to be near new businesses. And the fact that they are high-tech is a very good advantage for because is known for their innovative use of social media and other technologies as seen in line 27. So is more likely to meet the technical standards of these high-tech businesses, which means can take more advantage of this opportunity. Continuing from that, there is also an opportunity to find new types of customers. can start marketing for films, because in line 135, we see that the film industry produces about 80 films a year in Bengaluru. And just like Country X, this is an opportunity for to develop a new market, the film industry. Also, because Bengaluru is going through rapid growth, the working and living conditions of their employees of can potentially improve as well. This will later on be a good opportunity for in terms of attracting employees, attracting workers, because one of the reasons why employees in London may have been resistant to moving to India would have been because of the infrastructure. But as we see in line 136, there is rapid growth in Bengaluru, which means an extensive construction of buildings. This may potentially allow workers in London to feel more happy about moving into the office in Bengaluru. And the last bit in this paragraph talks about cheaper rent. The office in Bengaluru has cheaper rent than that of UK, which means the overall cost can be reduced, and the cost that's been saved can be reinvested into developing a better marketing strategy, or paying employees better, and so on. Lastly, in line 144, the owners of are exploring the possibility of taking over Satvi Films, a film studio in India, so that the company can produce its own advertisements for radio, TV, and cinema, without having to outsource the work. This opportunity for a takeover will provide with the ability to produce their marketing materials themselves as well. At the current moment, they are developing a strategy, but the making of the marketing videos, marketing advertisements are all done externally. So by bringing this within the business, they can have more control about how the marketing material is made or how it looks like. Then that way they wouldn't have to be communicating back and forth about how the marketing material should be changed with an external provider. It's all going to be done within the business, which allows to save time in terms of creating a marketing material and therefore improve efficiency. Now let's look at the threats of this business. Threats are external factors of the business that could potentially impact in a negative way. So one thing we see is that in line 20, is currently targeting the European markets. However, due to Brexit, there is now a lot more uncertainty between the EU and UK. So the European markets may not be as open to a UK business. And not just that, just the uncertainties, the political and social uncertainties may impact sales from the European markets. However, can reduce the negative impact of these uncertainties by targeting different markets. That way, the negative impact of the European market, maybe a reduction in sales, is less likely to impact the profitability of to a large scale. Another external factor that could potentially impact is the labor unions. Labor unions are not explicitly mentioned in this case study, but if you look at line 109, Javid thinks that can reduce their costs by delaying a planned pay rise for employees. This means the pay rise that was already planned for the employees is going to be delayed. This may cause dissatisfaction among the employees, and they might even think it's unfair getting the labor union involved. Labor union is an organization that stands up for mistreated employees. If the employees feel like they are treated unfairly or not given a fair opportunity to something, labor union can pressure businesses on the employees' behalf. So overall, they have a very strong voice and power. And these people, the labor union, may get involved if the employees feel that a delayed planned pay rise is too unfair. So that's one external factor that they need to consider because it could potentially negatively impact the business. Another external factor in which has no control of is the matter with country X. Under the ethical problem section, in line 120, we see that this country has been accused of human rights abuses, including arresting journalists for criticizing the government and persecuting people for their religious beliefs. It also has high levels of poverty and a poor environmental record, which the government has been accused of doing little to solve. This country is just a potential customer. They approached Claire and asked her to make a marketing strategy, design a marketing to promote the country, to improve the image of the country. But this is a threat because has nothing to do with how unethical this country is. But if does decide to help this country out and make a marketing campaign, marketing project for this country, the public might be like, oh, this is a horrible country and is supporting this country. This will then lead to MM's image being tarnished. And currently, they are known for their ethical objectives. They are trying to make sure all the businesses, all the customers that they work for have good ethical standards, good moral standards. And this ethical image that they've already built up can be tarnished if they decide to make a marketing design for country X. It might be seen as trying to cover up all the unethical actions of country X. This is a threat because it could potentially lead to negative impacts in the business. But the reputation of country X has nothing to do with and has no control over it, which is why it's categorized as a threat. Another external factor influencing is the fact that London has a strong creative industry, in line 139. This is probably the reason why designers want to stay in London rather than move to India, the Bengaluru office. And remember how Rachel wants a complete relocation to Bengaluru, completely moving out of London and just being based in India. And if the designers do feel that London is where they should be because this is the creative city, this could lead to losing all their creative workers in the business. didn't do anything wrong. It's just that London is a great place for creative people. It's like the country for art and design. And this is a threat to because if they do decide to relocate, this could lead to a loss of lots of creative workers. And last but not least, in line 147, it says there is evidence that economic activity in the major economies of the world is slowing down. Many businesses reduce their marketing spending in a recession. It is explicitly saying that businesses might reduce their marketing costs. The major economies of this world are slowing down. They are heading towards recession. This could cause some potential customers to close down because the economy is not running well, or it might cause them to reduce expenditure on marketing significantly. If this is actually the case, then might not want to be expanding just yet. In line 103, we saw that opening an Indian branch of the company would reduce its profit for a year. But if profit reduces on top of that because of businesses not investing into their marketing anymore, it could potentially lead to loss. And there is absolutely no point of expanding if there are no potentials for growth. And recession, slowing down of economies, imply that expenditure on marketing is going to decrease. So might want to be more careful about investing high amounts of capital in opening up a new branch if the customers are not going to be spending as much in marketing in the future. And again, as has nothing to do with the economy slowing down, and because this could potentially impact negatively, it's a threat. By now, you would have a case study full of highlights and notes about MM's current situations, some internal and external factors, and the people within the business that you need to consider when writing long answers. So well done for making it through this long video. If you have signed up for the online Zoom session run by TAE, you will be able to use this in-depth understanding of the business you now have to practice writing up a full mark answer to your exam questions. That's all I have for this video. All the best on your May 2021 examination.